So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the worst of all possible worlds, the first and only podcast whose doors are always open for you. I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
And today we are talking about a show that is near and dear to apparently only my heart, no one else in the entire world. Tom Goes to the Mayor, Tim and Eric's first television project.
I don't know, Brian. There are at least a dozen people, I think, in the message boards that I found that this is also near and dear to them. But you're right, it's a very polarizing show. A lot more polarizing than I thought going into this thing.
So my experience watching this show on Adult Swim back in the day was not staying up to see it, but rather waking up and catching the last hour of Adult Swim at 6 a.m. before going to school.
Shit.
And that is the perfect time to discover this show because it is such a 6 a.m. show. It is it's like listening to NPR on your drive to work, right? Everything is in this tone. It's all very quiet. For as ridiculous as it gets, it still always sort of keeps this weird, even keel about it. I thought this was just such a magnificent show with a great title. I got it on DVD like right when I graduated high school. Going into the process of making this episode, I was like looking at IMDb, trying to find old internet conversations about this. And all of the reviews on IMDb were like 1 star.
Really?
And they're like, this shit is gay. And they're like, this is the beginning of the end of Adult Swim. And it's like written in 2004. And then you have 3 reviews from the 2020s that are like, this is great. I never would have thought that their first show was like this. It's really unusual.
Yeah, it is. It's unusual, like not just by the standards of its time, but I think it's also pretty unusual in general. You know, I first of all, I'm coming to you live from a different mic from the great state of Michigan.
Yeah, you sound different, Josh. Do you have a cold?
No, Brian.
Are you in a lake house right now?
But you know what I did do is I bought 3 ears of fresh corn on my way out, which you can just do because they have those roadside stands.
And I hear you different because of those ears.
It's the ears. It's your ears of corn. I don't know.
Honestly, that sounds like something that Tom would say walking into the mayor's office.
He might.
Oh, I bought 3 ears of corn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, those are some beautiful ears you got there. But yeah, I was big into Tim and Eric Awesome Show. And like I got, especially in high school, I got really, really into Awesome Show. But I had never actually seen Tom Goes to the Mayor up until this. We put this episode together.
Wow,
I was so
really?
shocked to find that out because of how big of a Tim and Eric fan you are. And because I definitely did watch some of this with Anne back in college.
Right.
And so I thought, of course, Josh has seen some Tom Goes to the Mayor. Like, not even one episode of it?
Not even a full episode. I think I probably had seen a clip or two, but that's about it.
That's really wild because it's such like a drive-by Adult Swim show for me, right? Like when I was watching Adult Swim, I would be like trying to tune in at like 12:15 and I'd get there at like 12:10 and then like the very end, tail end of an episode of Tom Goes to the Mayor would be playing and it just like everything's on fire but everyone's speaking very flatly.
Just a close-up of a bird and then...
Yeah. Basically, I actually had never, I don't think, watched a full episode of Tom Goes to the Mayor, or at least like paid attention to a full episode of Tom Goes to the Mayor because of the way that the dialogue is delivered in this sort of very soothing tone. It's a very good background show. I will be very honest and say that when it would come on Adult Swim after a show I've been watching, I would immediately change the channel.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
The animation style freaked me out and I did not like it. I did not care for the photocopy men. Now, sitting down and watch it, I can obviously appreciate it a lot more than what I did in high school because I needed stuff that was a little bit more kinetic, a little bit more hyperactive, and this was very sedate.
And so much of what Adult Swim had to offer was kinetic and hyperactive, robot chicken. Aqua Teen Hunger Force can kind of flip between those two registers where it can be really ridiculous or kind of quiet. Although, Dana Snyder is never quiet when he talks.
Right.
Yeah, he simply
He's
cannot.
always like this.
or like C-Lab would be another good example of one that it's using all of these horrible old Hanna-Barbera assets, but it's doing really goofy shit with them. But sometimes it really is kind of restrained. And then other times, they're fucking each other and the sea lab blows up.
Yeah. Like I feel like this is closest in tone as far as those old shows to like Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Mm-hmm.
The way that show worked, because that never really got pitched up. But I guess when this came out, it wasn't that far away from the release of 12 Ounce Mouse as well, and people really hate 12 Ounce Mouse.
Mouse
really don't like it. I don't like it myself.
Like dry. Than this.
And it looks so sloppy and flat and cheap. Whereas Tom Goes to the Mayor, for as bizarre as its style is, you can tell there's quite a lot of effort that goes into every step of it.
Even in the fake behind the scenes that they did for the show, which ends up being a behind the scenes, but it's like it's done in the style of like a Jefferton like infomercial, basically. You can see how much effort it takes to like get everybody into all the poses, and then they have to go into the recording booth to do all of their lines, and that's a whole other step to it. And as Tom Goes to the Mayor goes on, what starts is these like still shots like transferring in between at this sort of like janky motion. They start like incorporating actual animation into it in like a very unsettling way. I watched the finale, which is not what we'll be talking about for this, but at one point, Eric, I get the mayor, right?
Yeah.
Leans forward and his photocopy starts moving like in animation, and I went, no, this needs to stop.
Well, so talk about this stylistically. We should take a look, step back for a second, and look at two little boys named Timothy and Ericathy.
Yes.
See, Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim. They're two Pennsylvania boys from different parts of Pennsylvania, but they meet up, not on purpose. It just sort of happens. They go to school together at Temple University.
We actually have an interview with them where they explain how they met, and I was hoping that you both could read this. Brian, if you want to be Tim, and Josh, if you want to be Eric for me.
Okay.
Hey, where'd you two meet?
We met in the dorms at Temple University. Eric leaned a big garbage can on my door, knocked, and took off. I opened, and I got a nice helping of pizza boxes, soda cans, and bong water at my feet. After that, we were close friends.
We created our first couple of bands that year, TGIF, Devil's Island, and the Tim Heidecker Masterpiece, and then got yelled at by our communications professor that day for cracking each other up at those names. I remember feeling like such a tool after a huge lecture hall of film dorks stared us down during our reprimand. I was literally crying when Tim handed me a piece of paper with TGIF scribbled on it. I knew he was the one.
We were out of control in film school. Temple took itself pretty seriously, and we tore into that. In our senior film thesis class, we did a video presentation about how there are lobsters in films and how VHS is superior to film. We were kind of jerks.
Oh, there are lobsters in film.
I
cannot tell if any of this is serious or if it's all just a big piss take.
No, the VHS thing is definitely real. They've talked about this. I remember when I got this on DVD, listening to the commentary track, and I was really worried that they were just going to be doing a bit the whole time, because it can be a little exhausting sometimes. And I feel like more recently, like in the last 10 years, Tim Heidecker is always pretty like, I'm just going to be Tim for this one, and we're just going to talk.
If he's not playing it straight, you will know, because he'll be very over the top. But earlier on, particularly when they had to do press junkets, they were almost always in character.
And they're funny. They're very funny. But like, and even their special features on the DVD, except for the commentaries, except for the zoo episode, because they didn't really care about the episode. So they just started doing like a fake argument. For the most part, they talked about like actual experiences that they had. They're in a class of a bunch of guys who want to be the next Kubrick.
Right. They're film guys.
And Tim and Eric have a very clear idea of what they want to be doing, and they're going to start doing it right now. And so they make this thing that's just like half of it is them just like running around in a park and fucking around.
If this origin story sounds familiar to another episode we've covered in the past, it's because they kind of sound like Trey Parker and Matt Stone, but then their trajectories sort of diverge because, I'm sorry, I'm reading this here. They make an animated a show right out the gate. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it gets the attention of somebody in the industry.
Yeah. So, beyond getting the attention, these guys are, for all they talk about like fucking around or whatever, they're very committed to their craft and they're very committed to their business. They knew from the start they wanted to get a TV show. This wasn't something they slipped into, but they got there through, at this point in the early 2000s, the nascent world of internet media. So
right, that's right.
They were going around making short films. They made a short film about friendship, and they make this weird animated thing in the style of a film strip, like you would get in school, where there's like a narration and then like the teacher just moves one picture to the next. They do this. That's called Tom Goes to the Mayor, by the way.
Okay.
We'll get back to that.
Right.
They do this and they put it all on their website. You can still access their 2002 website on the Internet Archive. We'll put a link in the thing. Yeah. And you can see a little bit of it. You can't see all the media, but you can see the intro to the Flash side of their site. At this point, Tim Heidecker is also working an office job in New York. Eric Wareheim is working, I think, in Philadelphia. And they start sending things out. They're big fans of Mr. Show. So they see the production company for Mr. Show at the end of an episode. You know, they write it down, they find the address, they find the phone number, they call it up. They're like, well, this isn't Bob's company because Bob Odenkirk is also producing things on his own. So here's the address for that. So then they send envelopes to that with, this is still when you would do this, a tape, a VHS tape of their reel, essentially, of all the shorts that they produced. They sent this around to a bunch of different companies. They put in the tape, they put in 2 DVDs and a t-shirt.
Okay.
And the t-shirt has a design on it of Eric handing Tim files, like they're in an office setting and they're wearing office clothes. And the caption to this t-shirt is, "Great job on that proposal." So they're sending this in a big, puffy, like manila envelope, and it comes across Bob Odenkirk's desk. And, you know, this is a weird time for Bob Odenkirk because he's very successful right now as we speak. He is someone who has done like 10 years of the Breaking Bad cinematic universe.
But this is well before
films.
Any of that shit came along. He was just the guy who did Mr. Show. And but that unlike, was say, Tom Kenny, who was able to go on and be SpongeBob, Bob Odenkirk didn't have a clear second act yet.
Yeah. I mean, he was obviously a huge comedy writer before that too, before Mr. Show. But like,
he had done SNL. He had done like 2 seasons of Conan. He had done the failed Ben Stiller show. He had done the failed Dana Carvey show. He's working on trying to develop things. He develops a show for Tenacious D. That'll come up in a little bit. And the Tenacious D show is like, I don't know, 11 episodes. And they're like also 10-minute long things for HBO. He briefly tried to do a Jenny McCarthy show for MTV, but like, after Mr. Show, he was not hitting. He was not finding success. And so these guys come along and there's so much, this is just such a breath of fresh air to him. And if you watch some of these videos, including the original Tom Goes to the Mayor, it's not very funny. I don't think it's very good at all.
I think the first one is not funny at all.
No,
I think the second pilot is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But the first one is not, honestly.
But something
Sorry,
about
Tim, if you're listening to this.
Something about the style of it really grabs Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at. It's unlike anything else visually.
And he has this very clear eye for talent, even though his stuff isn't making money. Oh, and they'd also done the Run, Ronnie, Run movie.
Of course.
Which is, I think, a really good movie. AJ, you should watch it just for the Mandy Patinkin scene alone.
Absolutely.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Okay.
And I won't tell you any more about it. This comes across his desk, and the thing that really sells it, more than the t-shirt, more than the DVDs, more than the headshots, is that included in the envelope is an invoice. They charge him like $248 for all of the items in the envelope.
That's so funny.
So this is September of 2002. I know this because he scanned the invoice and it's in his book, Comedy, Drama.
That's so good.
Oh, love that.
I will say, like, even by 2002, sending a videotape was pretty anachronistic. We had pretty well moved on to DVDs by now, or we're close to it.
Well, and that's why they sent a tape and DVD. It was still just kind of the thing that you did, even if no one would actually be watching a tape.
But those guys love tape, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. As
they
you
love
mentioned,
video.
you know, even if you go forward, it's tape. And even if you go through and look at the stuff that they do up until now, like check it out with Dr. Steve Brule. The way they get that look is literally by
the track
recording it to a tape and then recording that tape to another tape.
Yeah, they're straight up
looks really
using
distorted.
old broadcast cameras that they're getting from local access studios in LA. And they're
This
using
is real
talent.
analog equipment. Yes.
They're using talent from the local access LA studios,
That's
like
right.
David Liebehart.
I have this really lovely quote from Odenkirk about getting involved in everything. I get stuff. Usually I throw it out. Usually on the face of it, it's lame and I don't even watch it. But theirs, I popped it in for some reason. It was probably the invoice. Let's be real. They were clearly on a wavelength. Even though it's absurd, it was funny. Some people hide behind absurdity because they aren't funny, so they're just being wacky. These guys are funny and wacky. There are great jokes there that might test some younger kids' patience. I think it's for a slightly older crowd, he said. Yeah, the animation style is probably as challenging to some kids. I don't even like animation that much. What I like that it does is that it makes you listen.
That's true.
And that's the thing about this. Without the lack of sort of the visual variety of just the still shots in between the posed photocopies, you have to listen to the words.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of cartoons really capitalize on.
Or that any shows usually do. Like this is more dependent on dialogue than even like, I don't know, an Aaron Sorkin project.
And the spaces in between the dialogue where Aaron's just like, there will be no breaths.
Right.
Constant relentless pace. This is like, let's let people just sit in the muck for a while.
And I think that's an interesting point too about timing, because previously one of you had mentioned Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
And Robot Chicken is just gag, 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 gag. With it doesn't slow down. It doesn't stop.
Some entire sketches are 2 seconds long.
Or Family Guy, to use another example, which was so popular on Adult Swim. But yeah, no, this show breathes, and there are long sections that aren't even really intended to be funny. They're just weird to set you up for whatever the next big gag is.
Yeah. Another person that responded to this mailer was Jeff Goldblum. They got a call out of the blue one day from Jeff Goldblum, who was just like, hey, I just, oh boy, I thought, wow, you're both very funny guys, and I wish you the best. And so that's why Chef Goldblum shows up in so many of their projects ever since then, including the movie. Bob Odenkirk, though, doesn't just call them up and encourage them. He becomes their manager.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, guys, come out to LA. We're going to pitch this. Let's see who picks it up, right? He goes to MTV, he goes to HBO, he goes to Mike Lazo over at the Cartoon Network. He's able to get David Cross to just like remotely make the second Tom Goes to the Mayor. You can tell he's just literally on the phone with them. And so that's what they're shopping around. They have this idea that they bring to him that they want to make a sketch show. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, like Mr. Show. Yeah, well, good luck with that. That's not what you're going to do. We're going to have to make something that's a little bit more straightforward.
And they were able to make a sketch show later, of course. You know, Awesome Show. And Awesome Show, I think in many ways, is a pure realization of what their deal is.
Right.
But as you're saying, they had to pitch something that would get bought.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think they learned so much making Tom Goes to the Mayor. They needed that for Awesome Show to be as good as it was. They needed something that had this restriction placed on them, that had this discipline of telling a story from beginning to end for 10 minutes, multiple weeks. And without that, I think that they wouldn't have learned how to make Awesome Show as good as it was.
Yeah, and as you see the show sort of go on, you can see them leaning more towards the Awesome Show vein of things. You start seeing a lot more live action sequences. You start seeing, I mean, I've not seen a lot of Tim and Eric Awesome Show, great job, but I think the two newscasters,
Jen and Wayne, Jen and Wayne Schuyler, the only married news team in America. Yeah.
So they carry over obviously into Awesome
and they carry over into Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule as well.
Yes.
What it becomes is like Tom Goes to the Mayor kind of feels like they've like built this like wonderful house for themselves, but they just have gotten too big for it by the end, and they really want to stretch their wings and fly, which obviously they would when they got their next series.
And it helped because Tom Goes to the Mayor had abysmal ratings even for Adult Swim. You're competing with infomercials. So you just have to get more viewers than the infomercials, and then you're pretty good. So Tom Goes to the Mayor did not quite hit that because
it was not as popular as the infomercials.
Apparently.
Oh no.
Mike Lazo referred to it as the most divisive show on Adult Swim, which of course before Mike Lazo then produced $1 Million Extreme.
Oh.
Let's just listen here to the theme song of Tom Goes to the Mayor.
Yes.
Hi, I'm the mayor, and my door is always open for ya!
My name is Tom Peters, and I'm full of ideas.
Community spirit.
Hi, how are you?
And it zooms out to a TV that's in the waiting room. But this opening sequence, again, for an 11-minute show, 11 minutes and a few seconds past that, This opening sequence is 30 seconds long.
That's a huge amount of real estate in 11 minutes.
And this is not a title sequence. There are no credits.
Right.
The only name that you see is Tom Peters, the character in the show, and you do not even see Tim Heidecker underneath it. Because this is a video that they show at City Hall on a loop in the lobby. This was a big thing that they all came together to make that showed everything that Jefferton had to offer. It's snow globe factory.
Yes.
It's strip malls that have 2 stories, which is something that Tim and Eric discovered when they moved to LA, was 2-story strip malls.
Oh yeah, it's Tiny Guitar Factory. They're adult guitars, they're just very tiny.
Very small. The mayor's office itself is underneath Pipes Buffet, a buffet where you smoke a pipe and eat boiled food.
2 different Bear Trap stores right next to each other.
Owned by Jack Black and Kyle Gass, as it turns out.
Yes, and truly just like a nightmare town.
Yeah.
Right? This is like suburbia taken to its most like surreal and awful extreme. The food in this show looks awful.
Yeah.
Like it is the worst looking food of any show I've ever seen on television.
Well, and this is one of the things that I've always loved so much about Tim and Eric's work is they seem to understand the grotesquerie of middle America in a way that few other comedians understand. Like there's a whole lot of ways that you can be like, oh yeah, the food, but it's so much different to like create the thing that's like a hyper real version of what it really is.
Yeah.
And that has been something they've consistently done throughout their career.
Yeah, it's sort of like that thing like when you're looking at a menu at a restaurant, it's very clear that there's been like a photo shoot and they've like glossed up the food in some way. And then there's always the restaurant you walk into that's just like a ratty Polaroid of the actual food itself. And you're like, well, at least I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
You know?
And honestly, the ratty Polaroid, that food is probably going to be better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like this, Jefferton is completely flat. All of the roads are cracked. None of the grass is growing anymore. All of the houses are like tract homes. Like this really has taken everything that they've observed in different parts of America and it smashes it all together into one town that is the most American place that could ever exist. Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.